What's up, guys? My name is Lauren. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome to the channel. I'm really excited about this video today because I had a good friend of mine, Ellie, on who she decided to stop drinking when she was 27 years old and, has basically gone in on this video telling us about that experience all the way from how dating has changed, friendships and what that looks like what life without drinking actually looks like, more or less advice for people who are questioning their relationship to alcohol and considering a life without drinking it. And there's a lot of people out there who are in this kind of gray space of not knowing what to do, but maybe for their own reasons reconsidering their relationship to alcohol. Full disclosure, I want to be very clear, I have no judgment whatsoever for anybody who does decide to continue to drink. To each his own. This is a channel specifically for people who were like me, who when I was early 20s and teens, I was wondering about my relationship to alcohol, and I feel like I found a total life hack that I want to share with the rest of the world because it's gotten me so much further in life. So I want to share that with everybody out there who is maybe considering a lifestyle like this. So as always, you guys, if you are interested in, this kind of content, also content and just about improving your life in general and going through that journey with me, go ahead and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, any questions about this as you're watching, go ahead and drop them down below. We have awesome people that are kind of always talking. And then, if you did like this video, please go ahead and like it so that the YouTube algorithm can get it out there for other people who, might need to see this content as well. So I do hope you guys like this video. See ya.
Of course.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm
So I stopped drinking when I was 25 or 26. I still can't honestly remember exactly what year it was, but you also decided to stop drinking, but you said you were 27?
Yeah, I was 27, so it was actually less than a year ago. It was back in the fall, and it was after I moved. So I moved to Colorado in February of 2021, and that summer was super fun. I had a bunch of friends visit, but over time, I just I just got so burnt out because I think, the more you have friends visiting, the more you're going out, you're doing things. And for me, I'm from the East Coast, so that meant that all my friends who were visiting were from the East Coast, and it's really big drinking culture.
There.
So, yeah, I mean, definitely, I used to be really into beer. I used to be obsessed with brewery culture and, but not because I don't know. I mean, I did like the taste of beer, but it was really just something to do. And living out here in Colorado, I feel overwhelmed by how much there is to do. So it's a completely opposite feeling. And I think that that made it so much more ingrained in what me and my friends did when I lived there. And so habitually, when friends would come to visit, we would go out and drink a ton. And I wasn't even doing that much with my friends that I had made here. It was just my friends are coming, we're going to celebrate, we're going to have so much fun, and they would leave. I would just feel horrible. I remember always I would look at my work calendar for the Monday following a weekend where friends were coming to visit, and I would make sure to try to not have meetings because I was I won't be sharp. I won't be able, so I think that was definitely end of that summer. I was I don't like how I feel after I drink, and maybe the elevation had something to do with that too, but I just remember thinking I just don't like how I feel. And then I kind of got a little bit of a break, I guess you'd say, in the fall. I just had fewer visitors. That was kind of the impetus of this thinking though. And then there was one day where I went out with friends. We went out to dinner, and it was we had wine, and then we went to a concert, and we had I don't know, vodka sodas, and then afterwards we were hanging out with the band, and we were taking shots, which I don't do that. At this point in my life, I don't do that, or I didn't do that, and this was the experience that really was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was super drunk, and luckily I was with good friends, and one of my friends drove me. I was supposed to watch last minute my friend's dog, and I was oh, don't worry, I'll take him hiking tomorrow, I'll take good care of him, whatever, I love this dog. And so my friend luckily was able to drive me to her place, and we stayed over. And, again, nothing crazy happened, but one thing, I woke up the next morning and realized that we had gotten into her chocolate stash, and that's relevant because she had just come back from Costa Rica, and this was like
Oh no.
very special, like
Yeah.
Costa Rican chocolate. And so, like, I don't know, that might be like a little thing, but the whole day I was just feeling like such a piece of crap because I was like, I literally ate her souvenir and I'm not in a mental state to take good care of this dog. Like, I'm supposed to be taking care of this dog. And I don't know, it was just one of those things that like really affected me. And I was just like, I just like never want to feel
Yeah.
like this again. And then I just kind of decided after that that I was gonna kind of see. I kept thinking about it. Like I would tell my friends and be like, "Oh, okay, like that's interesting," you know?
Tell them that you were like
Huh.
done drinking.
Yeah, well, I used to say, and I honestly, I still kind of say, like, it's something that I'm trying on,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, because I, for me, like, all or nothing doesn't, I don't like that thinking. Like, I like to be able to, like, make my own rules and be on my own journey. And so, like, for a long time, I'm going to see how this fits. And then I just found that I was so much more, like, the way I always describe it is, like, I just feel more peaceful.
That's
Like, my
exactly
mind.
what I say. That's really weird actually. That's because I never
Yeah.
like find the words to describe it because there's like so many things that like for me at least that improved. Like I had better sleep, I had more sleep, I was more focused, my memory was better. I didn't like say or do really stupid things. Like, I would
Wow.
black out. I remember like being like I was just I don't know what it was. Like I got to a point where I would like drink alcohol and just like black out. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And once I actually got like a few weeks or like even if just a couple weeks or like a couple months underneath me of like not drinking after that last straw for me, which mine was like way worse than yours. Yours is pretty thin.
I'm interested.
Mine was, I'll tell you, but I basically like, I just realized there's so much more peace. Like really, everything was just chilled out in general. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, for me, when I decided to stop drinking, I had spent, and I don't know if it's like the same with you, but for like years, I spent a lot of years being like really insecure about drinking. And I think a lot of people are like that, but just don't
Hmm.
like really talk about it. And so I like wanted to keep drinking though, so it wasn't like I was on like this path to like quit necessarily. I was just like, okay, I'll cut back a little bit. I'll have beers or just like no shots and that kind of thing.
I did the
Yeah.
same thing. I think I'm just gonna stick to one alcohol
Yeah.
and I'll be fine. Like, no.
I'd set an alarm on my phone and the alarm would be like, okay, you're done. And then I would like be drinking and of course I'd be like, whatever.
Yeah, you're like, no, I'm having
Yeah,
fun.
it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll have one more. And then it's like inevitable that it turns out, how it does. But um I I spent years being like that and like kind of adjusting it. And I wasn't like, I was a social drinker, so like I went out like everybody
Yeah.
else, like we did, by social standards.
Yeah.
I wasn't like an alcoholic, you could say. But
Yeah.
there was my ex and I broke up at the same time that my mom's drinking problem had gotten really, really bad. And so it
Hmm.
was kind of like the two core people in my life had just like fallen away. And
Hmm.
I just like
Yeah.
really, I had like lost control in the sense of like stability. So I went on like a 3-day bender and I drank like wine, beer, whiskey.
Hmm.
I literally didn't eat for 3 days because I was just like drinking and like,
Yeah.
yeah. And it just like, I woke up from that and I had had so many iterations of me saying like, okay, you got to cut back. You got to cut back before that, that this time
Hmm.
I think I felt so shitty that it like really
Hmm.
hammered into me. But I'd also seen like my mom's drinking really, really, progress. And I had seen how it like actually was like ruining her life. And so I was like, oh, wow. Okay, if I do this with a breakup, like what am I going to do if, 20 years down the line, something happens with a business that I own or I lose my career,
Right.
things that are
Yeah.
like more serious. So that was kind of
Hmm.
what woke me up. But yeah, so that was kind of what happened with me. Since you decided to stop drinking, like
Yeah.
for me, I noticed that like the dating game is a little different. you
Yeah.
know, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so actually, the first date I went on I took after decided to stop in November, and then I didn't go on like a date after that until January. So I had a few months to kind of like, you know, make
Yes.
this more like official in my life. Like I said, like kind of try it on, like make sure I was comfortable with it. And then by January, I was like, I feel really confident and really like peaceful about this. The last thing was like the anxiety around, okay, like what are people gonna say? Are they gonna think that I'm like,
Loser.
yeah, am I like I'm not fun, you know? And it's like also what's difficult is that every time you start talking to someone, like say you're talking on a dating app, like it's always like, let's meet for a drink, you know? And so then I would like in my experience, I'd be like, actually, like, can we go get coffee or can we like go for a walk in the park or whatever it is? So actually, I the first date that I went on after I stopped drinking, like we like got into like a relationship.
Hmm.
So I didn't luckily have to have like several dates, but in that relationship, I actually like really appreciated that like he didn't care at all. He was like,
That's
"Oh, that's cool. Like whatever floats your boat, like that, you know, like good for you."
yeah.
And then, you know, over the course of our relationship, like it just became so normal. And there was like we're no longer dating, but there was this one day that I really appreciated. We went out to dinner and like he got a cocktail, I got a mocktail, and he turned to me and was just like, you know, I noticed that like I'm so much more thoughtful about the level that I drink now. And
Oh
like
wow.
I realized the other day that I haven't been drunk since we started dating,
Hmm.
and I feel amazing. And like I never thought about how much like it's just kind of something I do, you
Right.
know, rather than something I choose to do, you know?
That's so fast.
So, yeah,
That's
and
cool.
I mean, I think honestly, I admire other people who, I mean, admire is a weird word to use, but I think, you know, drinking is something that kind of is just ingrained in our society. But
Yeah.
um, any, I've noticed that people who have kind of maybe a healthier relationship, I'll say, with drinking, like they're like, okay,
Yeah.
great. Like you don't want to drink, no
Like
problem. You know,
big
no
what?
love lost for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I notice, and you know, you mentioned kind of your family habits. Like I've dealt with the same thing, and you know, I've noticed that the people who have more of a problem with you not drinking probably like it's a threat to them because it's a mirror reflection on themselves, and
Yeah.
like, should I be? So in my experience, like especially the community I have here, like I have not really dealt with anyone who's like giving me shit about it or you know made me feel weird. Like
Mm.
I've been met with a lot of love and support, and I'm really grateful and lucky for that. I mean, I don't know if everybody could say the same.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're totally right with like how it's ingrained in society. That's something I talk about all the time. Like I really believe like once I stepped back from drinking and got perspective on it, that like everybody's like stuck in this like matrix, like this program for alcohol.
Hmm.
And I want to be really clear, like this is not a channel to like bash people who drink or to say that alcohol is evil or anything like that. But it's to bring kind of more like conversation to the reality of the situation, which is that
Yeah.
it's constantly everywhere and it's like ingrained in like everything that we do, but we're kind of like taught that it's good, like even like watching, I never really watched it religiously, but like girls did watch Sex and the City a lot, and like
Hmm. Yeah.
that was kind of like this independent woman who could do work and all that kind of stuff, and like they would always go get
Hmm.
drinks together. Like that's what they did. you know like
Yeah.
that was
Uh-huh.
their fun. And so like, but it's and again, it's not that alcohol is bad, but it those types of things depict alcohol as like this sophisticated, sort of like mature way to be. And not that it's not, but I think we then as like individuals are then kind of trained to think that it's going to be
Hmm.
giving us something good or like community or belonging.
You're trained that it'll give you peace,
Yeah.
right? And then like the irony, right, is that I've never felt more peaceful than when I removed it from my life.
Right. That's the irony
You know?
behind it. Well, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the weird thing too, is like with when I before I decided to stop drinking, I was like super worried about it. I was like, "Oh my God." Like I didn't want to stop because no one stopped. Like it wasn't even really an
Yeah.
option to stop.
And you stopped like year, you know, mid 20s. Like, you know, I was a little bit like I I don't really know many other people who don't drink at our age, right? Like I'm kind of building that community, but like that was even you were even younger than me, so I'm sure that you kind of felt like you were on an island.
Totally. And that's the thing is like, that's even why I want to like make this content in general because it's like people like I could have really used like a friend who didn't drink to
Yeah.
just like hang out with or perspective on it because like you almost feel like you are on this island and that everybody else is like out there, you know, and they're living their lives and it's not like bad or anything, but once you have this perspective on like how good life is and peaceful without it, you almost like
Mhm.
want to tell people because it's such
Yeah.
an amazing thing that is really ironic that it's better. But like that's the
Mhm.
wild, I think, experience about our culture is that we are so in this habit and like this environment of drinking. And I do think like, you know, for you finding a guy that really didn't care, I think you're right. Like people that have more like healthy relationships with alcohol and like they
Yeah.
don't care. Like people don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you touched on a good point, which is like, you said you could have really used a friend. Like I also just really want to shout out. I know like I've told you this before, but I have like a very, very dear friend in my life who 100% inspired me and this move. I mean, my dad has been sober since before I was born, so and a lot of people in my family are sober.
Mhm.
So it's always been kind of like, oh, like this is something for me to kind of keep an eye on in terms of like my own habits and like, but I became really good friends with this girl last year when I first moved out here, and she didn't drink.
Mhm.
And we actually worked together at the same company. So, I saw a lot of like how she would talk about it with other people, and like I could see a little bit of her nerves with just like how people would perceive it.
Yeah.
We also worked at a consulting company where it was always like, oh, like we're having happy hour, we're doing these
Yeah.
events, and they were always centered around drinking. And, people would make like, older people in the firm would kind of make comments like, oh, like, what are we gonna do with this one? Like, she's a real drag. Just making
Oh,
comments is just not
that
okay.
sucks.
Neither does work there anymore. But yeah. So anyway, but this friend of mine, she is just the most like if you imagine sunshine in a person, like she is just so full of life and just loves to have fun. And I just like I saw her make this really cool radical choice in her 20s and still be the most fun person that I know.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? Like, because it had been in the back of my mind for a long time,
Hmm. Same.
I always just felt like crap. It was like a cycle. I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna set a timer to stop
Yeah.
drinking, or I'm gonna only stick to this alcohol, or like all this stupid stuff where it's like you're doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I knew what I had to do. I just didn't know how to do it. And so I really appreciate this friendship in my life because she really inspired me and made me feel like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And I'm really lucky to have had a friend like that, while I was figuring it out. But I think that it's, even if your friends are drinking and whether you have friends who are drinking or you have one or a few who don't drink, like it's all about your community and who you surround yourself with. Like if people give you shit about it or make you feel weird about it or don't support you, then they're probably not going to last very long in your life.
That's
So,
that's what I agree with that. I mean, like for me, I remember my community changed dramatically because everything I had done up until that point, which I didn't realize until I stopped drinking, but everything I had done had surrounded around drinking. Like you
yeah.
don't realize it until you stop drinking, but like
Mhm.
everything in our lives, at least in mine, had typically alcohol involved in it, at least on the weekends, you know, and even like Taco
Yeah.
Tuesday and like whatever it would be on Thursday,
Oh yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I agree with you. Like you said, like you're always like a social drinker. Me too. Like I never drank at home. I never even kept alcohol at
Me
home
either.
because I just like didn't want to even, I knew I always had this lingering thought like this isn't like I need to be careful with
Yeah,
this thing.
same.
So I never kept it at home and I was always a social drinker, but like I just always felt like when I would go out, like I'd be the drunkest girl at the party, because I was just like always such a lightweight. Yeah, and it's like I don't know. I also had experiences where like I used to live in DC and there's big like brunch culture, you know, and so like you go out and you like drink mimosas at like, 11
Like
o'clock.
boozy brunch,
And
right? Yeah.
yeah, and you just like get obliterated. I mean, and I remember like this one day I woke up and I was so hungover and I was just like, when you're hungover, you don't want to go outside
Yeah.
and enjoy a Sunday, when you've been in a corporate environment the last 5 days and like that's what you really need to do. I just
Mm.
wanted to lay and I started getting really, really bad anxiety and I was just like, oh my God, like I blacked out yesterday and like what if I saw my boss and his
Yeah.
family? You know? Like that kind of thinking like got into my head and like luckily nothing like that has ever happened to me. I mean, I'm sure you can relate. I'm sure anybody can relate because of like the binge drinking culture that we have
Right.
in the US. But I feel like I have been in situations where like it could have gone really badly and I feel really lucky that it didn't. And I feel now I'm like, okay, I'm in control of like I'm an adult. I'm responsible. I can take care of myself and I just feel so much. I think the peace that comes with not drinking, like that's part of it, is just feeling like, okay, like I'm never gonna black out and not remember and do something, embarrassing or say something embarrassing that I regret because I just feel like when I'm drinking, I'm like this numb, boring version of myself. I'm not present. I'm thinking about like should I get another drink? Like even before going out, it's like, okay, what am I gonna drink tonight? Should I drive? Like, how much am I gonna drink tonight? Like all these different decisions, and then you're out with your friends. It's like, okay, like should I get another drink? And I don't know if I'm totally alone in like
No,
this
not at all.
craziness up here, but
No.
it's like I'm like, oh, like should I get another drink? Is everybody else getting another drink?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're going to another bar. Like, you know what I mean? It's like all this thinking that takes away from the person right in front of me
Right.
who I'm trying to spend quality time with. And so like it's peacefulness and just being present for me. Like I feel like such a more present friend than I ever have.
Complete. Well, that was the other thing I was going to bring up too is like, I remember I don't think that my friendships were nearly as strong then as they are now. Now, I'll say like I had great times with friends drinking. So like I think one of the hardest reasons or one of the bigger reasons why people have a hard time stopping drinking, why I had a hard time is because like let's be honest, it's fun to drink. Like it's
Yeah.
fun, and it's like fun to feel, like drunk or tipsy or whatever. But so I had really great times with friends in those scenarios, but just like you said, like things, I mean, it kind of wasn't a real connection with a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so like when, I stopped drinking, I realized that I could have done better than what I was doing in my life to cultivate like really meaningful friendships. And I also remember when I did drink, I would have this like crazy anxiety of like, oh my God, did I say something to piss them off? Did I like you'd wake up on a
Mhm.
Sunday, and be like, does everybody hate me? Like
Yeah. Yeah, and the whole day, like
the
I
whole
said,
day.
you can't again, like that's a lack of being able to be present. And
Yeah,
that's how I started thinking about it. It's like the anxiety starts from the moment that the plan for me, it started the moment from the plan that was made. It was like, okay, this is supposed to be this fun thing that's supposed to like be relaxing and whatever. And it's like I started overthinking about all of those, in betweens. And then after the fact too, I was like, oh my God,
yeah,
did I do something? Did I say something? And it's just, it's anxiety from start to finish. And yeah, like just like all of a sudden when I decided to stop, it was like, it just vanished,
I know. It was
you
gone.
know?
I made a
So,
video about that too, how anxiety is like, well, it's linked to cortisol, which like makes your anxiety go up, and it's just,
mhm.
I don't know, it's crazy. But like you said, it's like you're sitting there waiting to be like, what's the next bar that we're going to go to? Like, what's the next step that we're going to make? How to logistically do we figure
Yeah,
this out, rather
yeah,
than just like being there. Um, you know,
yes.
I agree.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Even, I know this is crazy, but I remember in college, I was like not supposed to be like I feel like I have always been meant to be this age or older. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
completely. That's so funny you
you
say that.
know,
Yes, yes.
like when I was in college, I remember like we used to be like, oh, okay, like where are we pre-gaming? Like, and I'd be like, ugh, I hated pre-games. I would sit there and I'd be so anxious because I'd be like, when are we gonna go to the bar? Should I finish this? Like all these, I would just be not present. I'd be like worrying about all this like stupid crap that doesn't matter,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Um, yeah, and I think also who, everybody has had kind of like a I don't know, like crazy times in their youth, right? And I genuinely feel like I had my fun with alcohol, and like I had scary times with alcohol too. And it's
yeah,
just like I don't feel the need to even like entertain it anymore. I
neither.
just don't. Like I feel like it's just
It's like done.
yeah.
So I'm in the same boat. There's people who I often are like, how do you get over it? How do you not? And I don't even exercise willpower because I've realized, like, I've seen life with drinking and life without drinking. And for me,
Yeah.
I'm like 100,000% life without drinking because I look better, I feel better, I have more confidence, more peace, like we talked about,
Yeah.
um, stronger relationships. I spend way less money. Let's like say that. That's a huge one. You spend so much less money,
Right.
more time, and
Yeah.
like again, it's like to each his own for sure. But I don't know that there's enough people talking about this because I don't know that enough people even know that it's like an option, particularly
Hmm.
people who haven't hit rock bottom. Like, I don't know why we want to wait to hit rock bottom. Do you know what I mean? Like, why, if
Yeah.
we know that this thing could be potentially like bad for us, like you and I, like we kind of sitting there when we did drink, being like, maybe look out for this, maybe like pay
Hmm.
attention. Like,
Yeah.
I think, everybody has to have their process, but there's no reason to wait or to prolong it if you keep screwing up, and like
Yeah.
blacking out or finding yourself in random places or whatever, hooking up with people you don't want to hook up with, whatever it is, you know, like it's just
Yeah.
going to keep going. And I think that there's a community of people, which is what I'm doing with this channel, is like there's a community of people that have chosen to live a different life and like kind of break that
Hmm.
programming. And I think that's huge because now we get to almost like break familial patterns. Like for me, my family, at least on one side, they're like the most amazing people ever, like such good people and such like
Yeah.
strong family bonds. Alcohol has like really tarnished a lot of their, interpersonal relationships too. And it's been like an
Hmm.
alcoholic type of family, right? Alcoholic tendencies. And, that's always just been something that's been around in my family. Like it's been a common kind of like a joke in a way, but also like a sadness. And now it's like I've seen it come down through the layers, through the families, and like it ends with me at this point for my kids, like they can
Yeah.
do what
And
they
that's so
want.
powerful.
Yeah, they can, whatever if I
Yeah.
have kids, whatever they choose to do is like that's what they choose when they're adults. That's what they do. But like for me, I don't want to continue this chain of like alcoholic tendencies in a family where really, I mean, it's not like why, like, it's like once you stop
Yeah.
drinking it, you realize like what a waste of time. Like it's not even worth it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like on the family stuff, like I said, my dad has been sober for years and years, and like
Yeah.
he's had this mantra like you never meet someone who regrets quitting drinking,
Mm.
which is so true. He's like I think that he kind of I think he replaced drinking a little bit with religion. Like he's a very
Mm.
religious person, he's very spiritual. So I think that everybody can find different ways maybe to cope with anxiety or stress or whatever it is that alcohol is filling for you. But yeah, I think that I was just reflecting on what I see on Instagram, for example. It's like, okay, or even like commercials or any kind of ad. It's like, oh, like, you have a long day at work, or like,
Yeah.
you're a mother, and like you have a really difficult job. Like, what are you gonna do at the end of the day? Like, it's like it becomes this joke,
Yeah.
right? Of like, like, oh, like winos, like this is the only way I can cope. Or like I saw something the other day that was like, oh, like I wanted to get to a workout class, but I spent 3 days like drinking margaritas and like stuffing my face and blacking out. So like I can't. And it's like I
Yeah.
get like that that's just like a relatable like funny meme for like people at a certain
Yeah.
age, but it's like I saw that and I was like I'm going to a fucking workout class right now and I feel
Yes.
amazing. You know what
Hell
I
yeah.
mean? It's like I'm not trying to look down on anybody. And also like I do feel I feel the need to like make it clear that it's been less than a year for me and I think like I told you this the other day, like I'm still working on like my own like getting out of like habits and
Yeah.
you know, I told you like I had a friend visiting recently, like I did drink with her. I felt horrible afterwards and it it was like a very good reminder for me of like, okay, this is why I don't do this. So I'm sharing my experience and I think that, you know, it's important to say like not everything is completely linear. You know,
Right.
when you decide to take this journey or you decide to be more thoughtful in any way with any kind of substance. So like for me, I actually think that it was for the best because like I kind of like found myself, you know, spending time with my friends from the Northeast again and like kind of being like, oh, like, you know, am I still fun? Like, do they still think I'm fun? Like having this anxiety. And honestly, like going through that experience made me think like, okay, no, like this is why this is important to me.
Right.
And um I think it's also about communication and so like after that happened, I was really lucky because I had another friend who was like, hey, like by the way, like do you want to talk about the fact that you drank
Mm.
after like you know you haven't been for so long?
That's a good
And
friend.
of course in my sorry, go
I was
ahead.
I was saying that's a good friend. That's cool.
No, he's such a good yeah, he's my roommate too. But
Oh.
yeah, he's an amazing friend and he has been so with me through this journey and I want I want to emphasize the fact that I know that I'm really lucky and privileged to have like and he drinks like I have a lot of friends who have supported me like whether they drink or they don't drink but your friends can't know how to help you unless you ask.
Mm.
So when I started to like think about this seriously back in the fall, that was around the time that we first, you know, started talking about living together. And he had just moved back to Colorado, and I told him like what I was thinking about, and he was like, "Yeah, you should do it. Why wouldn't you? Like, if that's something that you see that's gonna help your life." And so just having him support me throughout all of this and seeing me at my worst or my best, like knowing that he's there and I can talk to him about the things I'm really scared about, you know, and my fears and like what if you right, like people think I'm not fun anymore, like whatever, like he was always there being like, it's gonna be fine. Like
Oh,
it's you know?
that's so
And so
good.
I think that's really important to just like say out loud what you need. I also think a really big part for me is um, in the last year, I have never been so vocal about things that I worried about.
Mm.
Like, in terms of drinking, like, I had to say out loud, like, I don't think I ever had a drinking problem, but actually saying out loud for the first time to a friend, like, I'll never forget this was in November of last year. Like, I said to a friend, I was like, I think I struggle with my relationship with alcohol.
Mm.
And like as soon as I said that and just got it like off my chest and just like had a sounding board,
Yeah.
you know, to listen and be like, "Oh, okay, like, you know, well like what are you going to do?" But that was like the trigger for me that was like this has less power over me now,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally. I actually have talked to a lot of people who like will message me on this on Instagram and stuff, and like they've said the same thing. Like they've come to like their partner who still drinks or like their best friend or whatever, and like for the first time will like more or less express that they feel insecure about their relationship to alcohol for one reason or another.
Hmm.
And like that was extremely difficult for them to do. Like I actually never did that. I never said anything to anybody. I was
Hmm.
just like quietly very insecure about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anybody around me that I felt like I could because everybody like drink around me, and I didn't want to be perceived as the one who had a drinking problem, and that people needed to be treating me like I was fragile, which I think
Yeah.
is, I understand why I did that, to this day. I'm like, that makes sense. However, I think it would have been for anybody, like anything, an eating disorder, if struggling with alcohol, any other kind of like thing that you're insecure about, you want to have a sounding board with like a close person, because I think then you have a little bit more accountability to yourself too, for like what maybe makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that anything with addiction, like there's a level of shame.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you're hiding something and you can get away with it, it's like you're only cheating yourself. But then when you say it out loud, and even like having that friend kind of be a mirror back to me and being like, "Hey, like what's going on with you?"
Yeah.
And then at that point I realized that I had been definitely going through like a little bit of a depression, like the past, well, when that happened, like I was kind of like thinking about alcohol again, and I realized that it was because I was just like feeling really anxious around that period, just, having like a crazy work schedule, being too busy, overextending myself, like
Yeah.
not really having enough time for self-care. And that's something else that like simultaneously around this time I started doing therapy for the first time, and it's such a life-changing thing. I mean, for me at least it has been. Like I just think about things in such different ways.
Right.
And I've learned that when I don't take that time for self-care, like when I'm like really over here, instead of like balancing, you know, having fun and taking time for myself, and like not like overworking and grinding, and
Yeah.
I just like I was leaning too far that way, and ever since that's happened, I've put so many new boundaries in place of like even with work, with friends, like
Mm.
taking more time to just like read and be alone. Like I've learned being older, I'm like, I need a lot of alone
Oh
time,
my gosh.
and
Yeah. It's crazy. I
yeah,
didn't realize, but in college and in high school and then post college, when I was still drinking a lot, like I was never home. I was there, this party, that
yeah,
pregame, that party, this bar, that bar, up until 2 or 3 in the morning, waking up at 10:30 feeling like shit, and then going to a
yeah.
day party, and then going and going. And like, it makes it sound, it almost sounds like I had like this crazy life experience with alcohol, but realistically, that's kind of like what everybody does. So,
No, I was just gonna say that sounds like a normal college student.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's so ingrained in our culture,
yeah,
unfortunately. And I think it really just takes, you know, I think you and I have had different experiences, because I think for you, like you said, you broke the chain of your family, and like you didn't really have any other friends who were doing this. So I really admire you and commend you. Like for me, I had, my dad to look up to. I had, this friend of mine, and so I I think that you're exactly right in that right now the most important thing is to kind of like spread that message and say like this is something people are doing, and like you can choose. You don't have to just
yeah.
like be assumed that what you do on the weekends is go out and get drunk. Like there's so much more.
Like,
But yeah.
you're a great example of that, because tomorrow, like, doing this water balloon fight, which is like the coolest thing ever.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's the thing for everybody too, listening. Like, if you're in your 20s or 30s or like younger than that, and it almost like, if you take a look at your life and you are considering changing your relationship to alcohol, like so many things that I used to do were around alcohol, but like there's so many more things to do, things that we used to do before we ever drank that were like so fun, like kid
Right.
things, just like fun things.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I got back to that when I decided to stop drinking, and meeting you, and then everybody else that's decided to stop drinking. Like, it's really a fun flipping community, because it's like you don't have alcohol as like an easy thing, so you find other ways to have fun, and it's like it's kind of like being a kid again. It's really cool, you
Yeah,
know?
it is. And I think that, I mean, that's a good point, because I think people look at it like, oh, well, we're gonna have, a pool day, whatever, but we're gonna have alcohol, right?
Yeah,
Like that's what you do like when you're an adult. And it's like this fun thing where it's like, oh, like drown your worries, and you're
yeah,
gonna have this relaxing day, but it's like it's actually, like you said, more fun because you're an adult and you're like, okay, I have money now to like fund these fun things.
yeah,
And also, it's like you're not just drowning out what's going on in your head. You're actually like talking to your friends and developing meaningful connections. I mean, I know like it's so funny to think that we've only hung out a couple times because I feel like I know you so
I
well
know,
because of that quality of time. You
completely.
know, like I think I have developed such deeper connections in my
Yeah.
life. Not just with new people that I've met since this, but even, you know, my best friend in the world, like I have been even more honest with her about things that like I don't like about myself or that I'm insecure about, like that I, you know, kind of just shoved down when we would go out and drink and just be like light, you know, it's like, no, like actually, dude, I want to talk to you about this because it's like really upsetting me. And I've noticed it's inspired her to do the same with me. So I think that it's about like meaningful connection and not just drowning out what's worrying you. It's like it kind of pulls out more of you and you can be more your authentic self.
Completely. And, in wrapping with that, I was going to kind of say, like, I think that is this, there is this perception, I had it, that when you stop drinking, life gets less fun, or people, like we've talked about it, people might think you're less fun, or,
Mhm.
just that mindset, or like that you're giving something up. And the irony behind it is that one, like we were saying, it's more peace, but secondary to that, it's like suddenly your life is so much more full in so many different ways that
Yeah,
like you would never imagine, because the authenticity and the connection, and because the intent to have that connection, like I think that creates that dynamic between the people that you're speaking with, and that attracts a new, like I think you actually attract more like kind people to yourself, like when at least for me, when I've been more directional about the kinds of relationships I want to build that aren't really heavily relying on the lubricant of like alcohol to create it. It's like it's a
yeah.
bit more, it's a lot more refined and meaningful with
And
old.
like real.
Yeah, and
It's real.
and that goes for old friends who still drink. They all still, I would say like 99% of my friends, 99.9% of the people in my life drink, and they're great people. And, again, to each his own, but like I think if people leave you because you're not drinking, they're not really your friend. If they're weird with it, they're not really your friend. If they give you a hard time,
Yeah.
then that's kind of you dodged a bullet with that. So, no, I mean, I completely agree with everything you say. Do you have any like advice for people that maybe are in their first year or 6 months of doing this? Maybe somebody who may not have a community of people around them that drink or don't drink, people that are just kind of new to this. Any perspective that, and there's no right or wrong answer, but maybe that you've collected.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, what was really helpful was just taking it one day at a time. So I think, you know, like I said, I treated it as like, let me try this on and see how it fits. Like, let me, you know, I know that I have worries about what is this going to do to my friendships? Like, what is this going to do to my social life? You know, what are people going to think about me? Are they going to think I had this huge problem? Like, I I really just treated it as something that was like a trial run.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know unless you try. And you know, I think I also said this earlier, but I my brother-in-law always says, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And for whatever reason, that really like has stuck with me for a long time. And again, I think if you know that something isn't working in your life, do something about it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it doesn't have to be a forever thing. It can be you can decide one weekend, don't drink, see how you feel,
Right.
you know? See see if, you know, you can just like talk to a friend about it. That's another really big piece of advice that I would say is just like I think that this has taught me how to communicate and set boundaries. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people struggle with that. So if you say to your friends, you know, like, hey, I'm actually like trying this thing. I'm gonna just like see how I feel not drinking, and just like I would really appreciate your support, you know, or like if you could just not make me feel weird about it, you know, like
Yeah.
I have had a couple friends who have kind of been like, well, like, what's your excuse? Like, you know, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? So there's going to be I hope that there's not those times for people listening,
But there
but there
probably
could
will.
be,
Yeah, there could be.
yeah, like there could be those. I will say 9 times out of 10, I have not been met with any problem. Yes, there's that 1 time out of 10 where people have just like made me feel weird. But again, like you learn to just be resilient with it and be like, okay,
Yeah.
like, if you have a problem with it, then that's your problem. Like, go get another drink
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
that's fine. So, and I think also just like kind of lead with love, right? Like,
Mm,
no, I feel really strongly about not making any of my friends feel weird about drinking around me.
totally.
It doesn't make me uncomfortable. I don't want to be that friend that's like everyone needs to like be on eggshells around. And I
Yeah.
think that you realize over time that like people really don't feel that way. And you would be surprised at how many people might say, hey, like you've actually like made me take a step back and like think about this
Right.
and be thoughtful. So just think about it in a way like try it, see if it works for you, and like it could really surprise you the impact that you might have on other people who didn't even know that they might have a weird relationship with alcohol too.
That's so true. I had a few people come to me and say the exact same thing, and you don't even realize you're just being,
Yeah,
you're just
exactly,
being.
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, no, I think that's all like I don't know, that's so appreciated, honestly, because so many people on here are just I think they just want just a acknowledgement that this kind of life exists. And like, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
for anybody, just know that this kind of like people like us are out there, girls are out there, that don't drink. And it's not weird. It doesn't matter. It's not that we have no friends or we're, banished from society. We've just found a way of life that is kind of a life hack for us.
it is. It is such a hack.
you know,
I love that, and I really
it's a
like.
life hack.
Yeah, it's a life hack.
Yeah.
It's a total life hack. And yeah, I mean, it's a life hack that I don't want us to be the only two who know,
Yeah.
though. It's like I want everyone to
Like,
know.
no.
I mean, not that it's not that everybody, would choose this lifestyle or that it works for everyone, but some people do jujitsu and that's their thing
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, I think that if it fits, try it on. If it fits, like go for it and have conviction and say like this is my thing. And if anyone has a problem with it, then
Totally.
yeah, I mean, just you can tell them to kick rocks.
Just like
Like
own it.
it's a choice. Yeah, exactly. Own
Own
it.
it.
Own it. That's
Own it and do you and have conviction that there's other people like you out there if you're on an island. And, I know many people are.
Mhm.
So I super appreciate you talking about this, Ellie. You are awesome.
Yeah,
I'm so glad I met
you're
you.
awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm
I'm
honestly
so glad I met you too.
it's yeah, this is one of those things, you guys, where if I didn't find people who didn't drink for a little while, and then eventually they do come into your life, and you'll have those pals, and they're really, really great, amazing people. Not that people who do drink are not, but it's something different when you meet people who are on like that similar mindset, I guess, as we are, similar
Mhm.
experiences. So,
Yeah.
anyways, Ellie, I love you, and I will be seeing you
I love you. I know. I'm so excited.
yeah,
And this is like another example. We're gonna just have like a movie night
yeah.
and it's just fun. We're gonna have a soulful conversation. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's gonna be just like kids. It's movie night, sleepover, barbecue, gonna do some s'mores and just, whatever, have that kind of an awesome
Amazing.
night. So, all right, girl, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks so much, Lauren.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.